Good morning, everyone. It's good to be here. So I'm going to be talking about the transgender movement in the world today. Throughout history, the world has been plagued with ideas that have corrupted and manipulated human thought. Examples of these ideas are vast, and the outcome has been deadly. I would like to bring awareness to one specific chain of thought that our world has normalized: transgenderism. This movement has corrupted the hearts and minds of many individuals by claiming that they can be whoever they wish to be. Their minds are corrupted with the idea that biological sex and gender are two separate entities, and they believe that gender is a person's internal sense of male or female. Whether they were born as male or female, they are their truest self when they live out of how they feel rather than who God made them to be. This concept is unbelievably warped. How did we get here? What steps in human history did we take to reach such a sinful point? The beginning of the world's downfall started when Adam and Eve disobeyed God. From that point on, humans were born with a sin nature. This sin nature has caused many people to draw away from God. For example, the Israelites constantly rejected God. Currently, I believe our world is in a state of rejection. The world hates God, and transgenderism is a way of showing that. Up until this point in history, the idea of trans individuals has been looked down upon and viewed as sin. However, currently, they are being praised for following their true self. Why is it that so many individuals are claiming to be something they are not? Why are they constantly trying to change who God made them to be? I would like to draw your attention to 3 causes that I found and 3 Anabaptist solutions for each one. The first cause is envy. While reading an article by Rosaria Butterfield, I came across the definition of envy. Envy is an obsession, a driving passion that insatiably drives a person to desire another's gifts, possessions, or achievements. In other words, envy causes people to do things they would not normally do in order to fulfill a desire within them. Proverbs 14:30 says this: "A tranquil heart gives life to the flesh, but envy makes the bones rot. A calm heart will bring forth life, but a heart full of discontent will bring forth death." Envy can be very dangerous. We often shrug it off and forget about the power that it holds, but it can cause us to forget all rational thought and do things that will give us no personal gain. In the beginning, God created male and female to glorify him. We have a purpose to subdue the earth and to take care of it. Yet, Adam and Eve were discontent and envious of God. Satan tempted them, and they saw a glimpse into what they could have if they ate of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. They became jealous of God, and they wanted something that was not theirs to have. They heeded to the serpent and ate the fruit, and because of that act of disobedience, sin was brought into the world, and it plagues us ever since. Just like Adam and Eve desired to be like God, our world has a desire to be something they are not. Many people are envious of what they don't have, and therefore they are trying to turn themselves into something that they're not. They try to cope with this desire by changing the way they dress, or going through surgeries in order to change the way they look. Yet these changes won't quench their desire. The only way for them to free themselves from their envy is to find true contentment. Jeremiah Burroughs says this: "Contentment is the inward, quiet, gracious form of spirit, freely submitting to and taking pleasure in God's disposal in every condition." Being content means having a peace about who God made you to be and finding happiness in what you have. To grasp this form of contentment, we need to understand the separate roles of men and women. God created men to be over women. In 1 Corinthians 11, 3 through 5, Paul says that the head of a woman is man, the head of a man is Christ, and the head of Christ is God. He created men and women differently because of the distinct roles that they need to uphold. Men are to be the heads of the homes. They are to take care of their families through provision and leadership. Women are to be the helpmeets for their husbands. They are to nurture and take care of their children in a loving and motherly way. When we understand the specific roles that God has ordained, we start to live a life filled with purpose and understanding of what God has called us to. We become satisfied with who God created us to be, and we swap our envious desire for a content mindset of God's ordained rules. The second cause that I found is the want to belong. Belonging is something that we all strive to have. We all want to feel loved and accepted by others. In the garden, Adam and Eve walked with God. They had an open relationship with him. They belonged. But the devil destroyed that relationship between them. He created a barrier. Because of sin, Adam and Eve had to leave the garden. They had to leave the presence of God, and ever since then, we have been trying to find our way back to him. Ever since the fall, we have struggled to find true belonging. In today's world, the transgender movement makes people feel like they belong. This concept of belonging is closely linked to the world's views of inclusivity. According to the dictionary, inclusivity is the practice of providing equal access to opportunities and resources for those who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized. If we're to be inclusive, we are to allow others to do whatever they wish, even if it goes against our own standards. When talking about transgender individuals, this is particularly important. If one speaks out against a transgender person, they are looked at as being transphobic. Can't you see? The world has tried to create community for transgender individuals, but that feeling of inclusivity is not long-lasting. The only remedy for these hurting people is to find the ultimate source of belonging. The only true source of belonging is found in Christ. We see the effects of Christ's character by looking at the lives of those he interacted with. Take, for example, Mary Magdalene. Before she knew Christ, she was looked down upon by society. She was living with 7 demons inside of her, and she had no hope of finding true acceptance. But then Jesus entered her life. He casted out her 7 demons, and he called her to follow him. He gave her a home and a taste of true belonging. Because of Jesus, she became a major part of his ministry, impacting the lives of those around her. Now, although Jesus is no longer with us in person, we are still able to experience what Mary felt through the work of the church. God has called the church to take in those who are hurting and give them a home. 1 Peter 2:9 says, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light." The church is God's chosen vessel. We are to proclaim God's power and love to those around us. We are to bring the ones struggling with their identity into our midst and show them what it means to walk alongside Christ. Through the church, these people will find Jesus, the ultimate source of belonging. And the third cause I found to the transgender movement is a warped view of God's design. From the beginning, Satan has wanted to be God. He was cast out of heaven because of his selfish ambition and thirst for glory. He saw himself as exceptionally beautiful, and he became proud. Ezekiel 28:17 says this, "Your heart was proud because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor." Satan's hatred towards God led him to tempt Adam and Eve. Through this temptation, he corrupted God's design of humanity and gender. He warped the systems God put in place and created chaos on the earth. In today's world, the transgender movement is a warped view of what God has designed. Satan has put into the minds of many that they can be whatever they want to be. This openly goes against the system God has put in place. And through it, Satan has also warped our view of beauty. According to Ezekiel, Satan was very beautiful. But now God shows his beauty through us. Psalms 139:14 says, "I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well." God has created each one of us beautifully. But because of Satan's envy towards God, he has warped our view of beauty and caused many to believe that it comes from outward appearance. This idea of beauty has caused many people to change their gender in order to be more beautiful. What should our solution be? We need to find truth. In a world full of false ideas and relative truth, it is hard to discern what is true. How can one make a wise choice when their mind has been molded and formed to believe whatever they think is right, even when pure fact destroys it? The transgender movement is heavily based on feeling. They have no evidence to combat the truth or science of biology. But how can we change this postmodernist mindset? I believe change will come through prayer and discernment. We should pray for wisdom, that we may know how to interact with the world. We should pray that God will change the hearts of the world and open their eyes to the lies they have been fed. We also need to discern for ourselves what is truth. We need to ask ourselves challenging questions and find true answers that will combat the arguments hurled at us. We need to understand our own biology and roles as men and women to discern the truth about them. When we find truth, when we find God's truth, we should lovingly share it with those around us and bring about change so that God's glory may fill the earth. In conclusion, we often look down upon the transgender movement, condemning it. Yet if we stop and think about what the true causes of this movement are, our hearts should be moved with compassion. We see that the motives behind this movement are brought about by sin. All three of these causes I have talked about: envy, the want to belong, and Satan's attempt to warp what God has designed, stem back to the beginning. It is our role as believers to bring about change. We do this by finding true contentment, by finding the ultimate source of belonging, and by finding truth. All of these are lasting solutions because they bring our focus off of ourselves and put them on Christ, for he is our only hope in a world plagued with sin.